Hi, let's examine how contracts may be terminated.
Methods of terminating contracts. Contracts may be terminated. Once an offer has become a contract, there are still ways that the contract itself can be terminated. Sometimes things just do not work out as hoped and one or all parties wish to terminate a contract. Contracts are offers that have been accepted. Because there are specific legal obligations for both parties to perform per the contract, consequences can result upon attempting to cancel the contract. Methods of terminating contracts. Methods of terminating contracts include performance accomplished, time specified not met, impossibility of performing, mutual agreement, or breach of contract. Contracts can be terminated by performance, time runs out, performance is impossible, mutual agreement known as rescission, or breach. Performance. Performance means that all parties have done everything agreed to in the contract. All contract terms and conditions have been executed, and all contract terms and conditions have been met. In a real estate sales transaction, this means that the property has been transferred from one party to another. When the contract has been performed as intended, the contract itself terminates. This is usually the best outcome for all involved. Time runs out. Contracts are generally written with the phrase, time is of the essence, meaning all parties are legally required to do their best to meet deadlines. If someone failed to act as required in a contract, that party could be held liable in court. Time runs out example. An example of time specified not met would be someone seeking a mortgage, but the clear to close from the lender fails to come before the required end date for performance of the contract. In this case, the contract would end unless both parties agree to extend the contract timeline. Performance is impossible. Performance of contractual duties can be excused under an impossibility theory. Types of impossibility theories observed by the court include acts of God, death, or legal impossibility. Performance is impossible example. An example of performance that is impossible would be someone who needed to secure a mortgage to purchase a property but was unable to qualify for the mortgage. In that case, the contract would be terminated. Another example would be the death of one of the parties or the destruction of the property. Both events would terminate a contract. Mutual agreement. Parties may mutually agree to terminate a contract. If both parties agree to end the contract is terminated. This is called mutual rescission or mutual agreement. This normally has the happiest end for all involved, as it means that buyers are free to buy other houses and sellers are free to sell the property to another buyer. With a real estate sales purchase agreement, if the agreement to terminate the contract comes after the earnest money deposit has been made, both parties will be asked to sign an agreement about who will receive the earnest money. The contract may specify how the money will be handled upon cancellation, but best practices of brokers require the signed agreement for release of funds in order to avoid a possible lawsuit claimed against the brokerage. Mutual agreement example. An example of terminating a contract by mutual agreement would be when either the buyer or seller simply changes his or her mind about the transaction. The other party could resist and insist on the contract moving forward, or an agreement could be made to cancel the contract. Breach. A breach of contract occurs with the failure of one or both parties to perform. This may give rise to one of the parties suing the other for breach of contract. If the party does not fulfill his or her contractual promise or has given information to the other party that he or she will not perform the duty as mentioned in the contract, or if by action and conduct seems to be unable to perform the contract, the party is said to be in breach. Breach example. An example of breach would be a buyer that gets cold feet right before closing and simply refuses to buy the house with no cause. Imagine if the seller has moved out of the house and even made specific upgrades prior to closing as part of the buyer's demands. If the seller sues the buyer could be held liable.